And hello, everyone, my fellow witches and wizards. Welcome to the Gothic Graveyard Show. Reverend Peter here once again. Thank you so much for joining me. For anyone new, greetings and welcome. And for all you returning folks, hello, hello. Glad to have you here. For those who may not know, my name is Reverend Peter White. I am a practicing neo-pagan wizard, or witch, if you will. I lived and worked in Salem for many years. I now reside in Boston, just south of Salem. But I still consider myself a Salem witch, per se. And we mainly just talk about the history of witchcraft and various esoteric topics like that. I have been doing tarot for 20 years now. And we're in fact, that's what we're going to do today. Talk about that, actually. And but before we get to all of that, a few things of note. First and foremost, I hope everyone had a wonderful Samhain, aka Halloween. I hope it was a pretty low-key here. All my plans for this October, for those of you who might be interested, unfortunately kind of bit the bullet. As you know, we have a zombie apocalypse going on, and crowds are not a smart thing. So my big party events and my big travel plans, all that stuff, just unfortunately went the way of the dodo. But that's all right. That's next year. Next year it's going to be bigger and better, and we'll make it up. We'll make up for it. So, yes, it's a little sad. Yes, the coronavirus is annoying as all hell. But, we got to do what's best. We can't be selfish and just think of ourselves or what we want for fun. We got to think of the bigger picture. We got to think of our fellow human beings and what's best for them. And the best thing we can do is just trim back our plans and our travel and try to not only keep ourselves safe, but keep everyone else safe by preventing being part of as a spreader. So with that said, a few weeks back, I did a Q&A, and one of the questions I got was, what's going on with the election? And I presented at that point, what I foresaw was going to happen. And I thought, now being November 1st, that I'm recording this on, that this would be a perfect time to do a full reading, kind of get a full idea of what is happening and what is going to go on with the presidential election. So either Reverend Peter is going to show his skills, or he's going to really choke. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. But I'm Reverend Peter usually does pretty good. So a lot more hits and misses. That's I thought we would do a follow-up to that and just do a full one of my full spreads, and we'll see. And we're going to talk a little bit about tarot. I think I'm going to do a multi-part over the next several months. Do a multi-part examination of tarot in depth. And so for this particular thing, before we actually get to the spread, we are going to just talk a little bit about the history. So we're all on the same page about tarot, how it works, what it's all about, all that good stuff. Now, one of the last bit of business I got to take care of. For those of you who sent me emails, who won at the giveaway about a week or 2 weeks ago, I apologize. I have not forgotten about you. The boxes I ordered to ship you these, I want to get the right size boxes. I didn't want to get huge boxes. The boxes are too small. I couldn't fit these things in. Not too big, because then I would just been overkill. I want to get the right size boxes, and the particular size I ordered took almost 2 weeks to come in, and I just got them in a couple days ago. So I am going to get that out to you this upcoming week. So I apologize for the delay. Haven't forgot about you winners. Expect something in the mail soon. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about tarot. I got my primary deck here. It's called the Archeon deck. Uh, it's made by Timothy Lance. It's loosely based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It basically follows that, except instead of using artwork, Timothy is a graphics designer. And what he did is he took pictures of real life models and then superimposed them into his artwork. So so the actual people you see in these cards are actually real models he used. So it's a very, very good deck. It's definitely an intermediate to advanced deck. I would not suggest this deck for a beginner. I always say, even though not everyone agrees with me, I stand by it. I strongly believe just to understand the symbolism and get a baseline understanding, everyone should get a classic Rider-Waite-Smith deck and use that for at least the first 6 months to a year, and then from there you can start branching out. But just to understand the basics, understand the symbolism, and just get a good foundation. Because once you get the foundation, then you can build your house however you like. But a foundation is a foundation. You know, foundation is not really too much difference between one foundation versus the next. And so we all need to get on the same foundation, understand it, and then move on from there. So, with that said, let's talk about a little bit about the history of the tarot. Now, the debate on the origins of the word tarot is actually, by historians and scholars, a bit in dispute. We believe it either is based in Old Italian or Arabic. The first mention of tarot as a card game came in the 14th century. And it's a little unclear where it actually originated from. There are theories from all over the place, everywhere from as the Baltic region to Egypt to China to India. It's just now there's some of these theories or hypotheses, I should say, have been pretty much shot down. But that's where a lot of ideas and just hypotheses of where tarot originally came from. So we don't know exactly where it came from, where it originated from. All we know is when it's first mentioned in documented history, and that came in 1367. It was actually mentioned because the card deck was banned in Switzerland in that year. So that's how. So that was the earliest known mention. So it clearly existed. To ban something, it has to exist. So it clearly has a little bit older history than that. We just don't know how far. It could be 2 years. It could be 20 years. It could be 200 years. We just don't know. Now, what we do know, however, is there are some people have put out the thing, it comes from ancient Egypt, and just, they're trying to imply the tarot deck is thousands of years old. What we do know, however, what archaeologists and historians have been able to determine is that is not the case. It is older than 1367, but not by, a millennium plus. It's most likely, I think when we actually do find out, we're going to find it's probably within a century, within 50 to 100 years before then, I would suggest. Probably closer to the 40-50 year range. So, it started out as art and an educational device, the cards did. And it was most notably used around Middle and Northern Italy. The first recorded use of tarot, not as an educational device when I say educational, what the cards were used to teach morality and virtues. That's really what the cards were used for on an education level. And they were beautifully gilded, cards, and they were also used as art, as very, very exquisite, very, very beautiful, and they were used as art as well. So they had those dual purposes. However, they weren't used in, and eventually they also ended up turning into a game of chance, a card game. The first recorded use of tarot, however, to be used in divination came in 1540. However, there's no real definition or meaning exactly what the cards meant or what was going on. It was just a general general entry about that they were used for divination, but no real specifics about it. Now, the first definition of what the cards meant on a divination level, it was written down in 1735 in a book called The Square of Sevens. Now, one of the forefathers of modern psychology, Carl Jung, he was the first psychologist to attach the importance on the symbolism of tarot cards, as he wrote down that it represented various human archetypes. And then noted psychologist after Mr. Jung, Timothy Leary, he suggested the major arcana represents via archetypes human development of a person's physical and spiritual journey through life. For example, the Fool card, the very beginning of the major arcana, that is birth. Then you have the Death card, and then you have the World card, the one's final spiritual journey. Basically, you put them all in numerical order. He's saying it's the physical and spiritual journey of one's existence. So, now, how to read cards. You ask 10 different readers that, you're going to get close to 10 different answers. Because there's no one true way per se to read tarot. As we've talked about witchcraft proper previously, I was very forceful and I stressed witchcraft is not a make it up as you go along. There are certain baselines and certain things you've got to adhere to and understand and hold on to, and then from there you can build off and kind of make it your own. Tarot is the same. There is a baseline understanding. You got to understand the symbolism and such, and the intellectual aspect of it, and how all the cards relate and such. But then the intuitive part of tarot, there's no one way to do it. As kind of the name implies, intuitiveness is being intuitive. There's no one way to be intuitive and tap into that resource that everyone has. So when you're reading your cards, it is 50% intellectual and 50% intuitive. So that is why when you ask a reader, you're going to definitely get some crossovers. Most likely some of the basic symbolism and the intellectual aspect should be, if they're a good tarot reader, they should more or less be in line with everyone else. But when it comes to actual, how does the cards talk to me, or how do the cards, interlink, and how do the cards all work with each other? That can be very ambiguous person to person. You got to figure out a system that works for you. So I'm going to talk about, on that level, I'm going to talk about, just how I do it. Not necessarily that's the only way to do it on the intuitive level, but that's the way I do it. Now, as far as the intellectual level, every card has set symbolism, and it not only associated symbolism, but there is associations with alchemy, associations with the Kabbalah, or Jewish mysticism, some numerology. There is a layer upon layer upon layer of information in each card, and it's almost a rabbit hole. It can be overwhelming. I'll tell you, I deal with the raw symbolism, the archetypes that we talked about previously, and the astrology symbolism, and a little bit of the numerology, and a little bit of the alchemy and Jewish mysticism. But really, mostly, I focused on the archetype symbolism, the astrology, and a bit of the numerology, and and as I said, just surface of the alchemy and Jewish mysticism. Because, quite frankly, there is so much. Now, there are some, and I know there are readers, some that they've gone down that rabbit hole, they've studied it nonstop, and they can talk about each layer of each card in great detail. That, and I respect them, and that works for them, and I wish I could do that. There's just too much information. I will just get lost in the information if I do that. So the one thing about tarot you got to really focus on is what layers of the symbolism do you want to focus on, and once you do, then you just got to be consistent. That's the other thing. Consistency is very, very important in tarot, because once you get a pattern and a system in place in your head, as long as you're consistent, you'll find it works quite well. When you start being inconsistent, that's when the accuracy goes out the window, as I found. So it's a 50%. So it is an equal mix of intuitive and intellectual knowledge. For those who want to learn tarot, engaging with the deck every day while you're learning, get a daily routine, whether that's just pulling a card every day, studying it, testing like a flashcard, testing yourself. What do you recall about the symbolism? What's the meanings? What's all the symbolism mean, and associations? And then read up on the card and rinse and repeat, and do that once a day. I actually did that when I started learning tarot the first year or two, and it did help absolutely. As I mentioned, modern tarot as a direct association with astrology, the Kabbalah, ceremonial magic concepts, elemental concepts, numerology, alchemy, symbolism. It's, as I said, it's a rabbit hole. And for those of you kind of on a genius level or photographic memory, then I encourage you to absorb all the information. Absorb it. For the mere mortals like myself and probably most everyone else watching this, as I said, pick and choose which layers of the proverbial onion you want to focus on, and as long as you're consistent, that's good. Obviously the number one thing should always be the archetype, the basic symbolism, but after that, you got to decide, okay, is it the Kabbalah and alchemy aspects that I want to focus on, or is it the numerology and the astrology? And so you kind of got to figure out which layers connect with you the most, work with you the most, and that's a trial and error. And there's no way, there's nothing wrong with trying a deck, and realizing the deck isn't working for you, and so you got to find another deck, you do feel comfortable with the deck, but that you got to figure out which of those layers works best with the way your mind works, the way your intuitiveness works, and the way you interact with the deck. There are some people who say reverse meanings, reverse cards, are not needed, and I strongly disagree with them. I think that is basically the same as saying, in a 3-book series, only reading the first 2 books. You're not getting the complete story. You're not getting the complete picture. You're not seeing the whole aspect of you know, all the chronologically speaking, what's transpired. You know, you're only getting a partial picture, and reversed cards are very, very important. Now, keep in mind, just because a card comes up reversed in a reading does not mean the opposite. It depends on the card. Some cards, the reverse of the card sometimes means the opposite of the upright meaning. However, more times than not, the reverse meaning either means the same as the upright but to a lesser degree, or completely different interpretations. It is not, I got this card, it's reversed, so it's the opposite. While that is true for some, definitely not all. So again, that's when, understanding what all the symbolism of the cards and mean. But the reverse is very, very important because that gives you another layer of information and really can clarify things. Now there's also another issue that I take with tarot cards. That some readers, that they try to fluffy bunny the negative cards. There are a couple cards in the tarot deck. For example, off the top of my head, the Devil card, Tower card, the Nine of Swords. These are cards that have very little, if any, positive associations. And that's fine, because life isn't always rainbows and unicorns. There are some parts of one's life, and if you're of any age, you've encountered a situation where it was just bad. There was very little, if any, good. And that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that, for the tarot to reflect real life and real situations, there has to be situations like that. And just trying to make everything all love and light and peace and happiness. Not only are you doing a disservice to whoever your client is, but you're doing a disservice to yourself and the craft. Yes, sometimes you're going to encounter some very dark, some very negative topics. But if you can't handle that, then quite frankly, you shouldn't pick up a tarot deck. Now, and this kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about is ethics. Number one thing you got to remember is you're dealing with people's lives. And some may be in a very emotional, dark place. Again, doesn't mean you have to lie to them, doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat everything, but empathy, that is the key. Let me just tell you a quick little story. This woman came to me. She said she had a younger sister who was, I think, about that time 16-ish. And she said, I gave her a reading. She said, I got a really good vibe from you, and I'd really like you to give I'll pay to have you read my little sister. I was like, sure, absolutely. So we got together. I pulled the cards for her sister, and I could tell right off 5 seconds after the cards hit the table, I knew she had been sexually abused. And now, just because I know that doesn't necessarily mean I have to. Obviously, it's a very sensitive, very difficult issue. So all I said was, I know I see here in the recent past we had a very traumatic experience, and then I segued into moving forward and things along that line. I just want to say that so she acknowledged that I knew what she knew, and it didn't need to be explicitly said, but it had needed to be implicitly said to build that trust with her, and so she understood what I was seeing. And that was enough of a door, I felt, where she wanted to then come back with me with more information. She certainly could. So that's yeah. And then about 2-3 days later, I get an email from her. She was like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was really helpful. What we talked about, and nice little email." Last sentence, I'll never forget this. Last sentence in the email. "So how did you know I was raped?" So that's ethics and empathy are very, very critical to a reader. If you want to be a reader, you got to be prepared for that. You got to be able to handle that, and you really have to take that very, very seriously. And I can't stress that enough. And lastly, I will say, there's nothing wrong with admitting your client needs far more help than you can give. I would suggest all readers have a list of local helplines and services you can have in your pocket or in an easily accessible place during your reading. The worst thing you can do is to go on an egotistical journey and think that you have all the answers and you can solve all their problems. There are people that, a tarot reader is a combination Dr. Phil, Dr. Ruth, and best friend all wrapped into one. And while you are kind of playing a poor man's therapist for, depending on the reading, 15 minutes or at best a half hour, there is going to be issues. For example, like the previous client I talked about, my best advice to her at the end, what I told her, again, not bringing up specifics, but I just said, I strongly suggested that I asked her if she was, in therapy or if she was talking to somebody, and if she wasn't, I politely but firmly suggested that might be in her best interest if she hadn't already addressed that. And thankfully, she was actually looking into it at the time, so she goes, "Yeah, I'm looking into it." And I said, "That's great. I think you're going to find immense help with that, and it's definitely going to help with what transpired in the past." And again, I left it at that, and she, it's not always what's said, but what isn't said that's important. So, so that's the other thing. I mean, I'm a Leo. I'm an egotistical prick. No problem admitting that to anyone who asks. But again, you are dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with people's emotional well-being, and the smartest. And unless and even if you do have, you are a trained psychotherapist or a psychologist or counselor, you're not going to solve all their problems in 15-20 minutes. You just can't. Your goal is to make a connection with them, give them information and tell them where they're headed on their current path. And then if you feel that they need a follow-up, to give them some suggestions. Like, hey, here's someone you might want to talk to. Or, or I would suggest, I think you'll find it very helpful if you go talk to someone who can deal with what you want underwent, or something along those lines. And you got to know, as the old Kenny Rogers song says, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold. And you got to know when you got to be very self-aware about your limitations and what you can do. Hopefully get them on the right path, give them some good advice, let them know, answer their questions, and let them know whatever the question is, whether it's about money or love or health, or just give them the information they're seeking, and then follow up with, if it's a very serious issue, try to push them in the right direction to get further assistance. So, That's my little 101. Now, let's see. What Reverend Peter has, what the cards want to tell Reverend Peter about our upcoming election. The last time I did this, folks, during the Q&A, I was fairly, I was feeling good. I wasn't overjoyed, but I felt like, you know, we were definitely going in a good direction with a Biden win. I felt we were in a good direction, but things could certainly turn. But now we're only a few days away from the election. There's really not a whole lot of room for other variables to really change the course. What's going to happen, I think, is pretty close to written in stone at this point. So I really, yeah, I just figured this would be a good kind of ending to this little tarot talk, if you will. All right, let's see what we got here, guys. Let's see what we got. Okay. Okay. Okay, first thing that concerns me, I'm going to contradict myself. I was like, you know, it's only a few days from the election. What is it really? Everything's kind of written in stone. There's not one major arcana card here. For those of you we've talked a little about this in the past in other videos. Major arcanas are basically cards that are, for the most part, pretty much written in stone. Like, very little can change the course. Minor arcana, things are still immutable. Things are still changeable. There's just nothing but minor arcana here. So that's going to keep me up at night, not going to lie, for the next few nights. However, future tense. Future tense, this is what we're looking at right here. We got the Five of Wands, the Queen of Pentacles reversed, and the Nine of Cups. As a whole, I kind of like this. I kind of like what I'm seeing here and the vibe I'm getting. The most important thing I can suggest, the Seven of Cups reversed, that's people making assumptions, or perhaps, for example, in this context, people taking the polls too literally and resting on their laurels. If you already haven't voted, obviously it's too late to, for the most part, it's too late to mail or do early voting at this point, I believe. I don't know, Monday, if there is early voting, certainly go do it. But for the most part, this is warning me that there's still a chance that people could get complacent. Biden's up in the polls, so I don't need, I don't need to go vote. That is a dangerous mindset to have right now, and that concerns me greatly. So this card does kind of this is where this middle row is where we're at right now, and so that's kind of concerning me. The crown card here, the Ace of Cups, that's great, which is telling me that if we can overcome this, then that Ace of Cups is a very, very positive card. And in this context, it means very, very high probability of success. So, we just, anyone who hasn't voted that's watching this, please go make sure you vote. And do not take anything for granted. As one of the old adage says, go vote like you're 3 points down. like your guy's 3 points down. And you know every vote will matter, because that that concerns me over 2016 repeat, and that that 7 of Cups kind of does kind of give me a little EBGB. But moving forward, if we can make sure we don't fall into this trap, the 9 of Cups. Now I will say, I am not seeing on the presidential level. I'm seeing definitely some contest. There's definitely going to be some. I see some Trump trying to contest things, but I think it's going to be for naught. I think I'm not necessarily seeing a blue wave per se here, but I'm seeing enough of, if we can get through this, I can see enough of a margin of victory, where some of the things he's, even if you give him the things he's contesting, there's really not a real path to victory. So, but I do see him, unfortunately, I am seeing him put up a little brouhaha. Like not conceding right away, taking a day or two to concede. But it would be for naught. Ultimately, it's I'm not seeing, the country being torn apart in chaos and confusion, and the no decision, no decision for weeks or months, and endless legal battles, what have you. I am seeing some, but I'm not, the other cards around it, I'm not seeing enough to say within a few days at most, things won't have settled and be determined. So that's kind of what. So I am cautiously optimistic. Again, these are all. There's not one major arcana card here. I would have loved for a major arcana to be in the future tense row, and there isn't. It's still in the. It's all minor arcana, which again, kind of really concerns me. I'm afraid now in the next 2 days that we might have a late October surprise or something, or some sort of craziness. But short of that, I feel pretty good. So there we have it, guys. I just wanted to, as I said, a short and quick, dirty video. Follow up on the presidential election, because I know that's big. If you guys do want a multi-series tarot course, hit me up in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I really appreciate all the support, all the love. If you have any other ideas for videos, hit me up. And if you need to reach out to me, all my information is in the description below. And I hope I see you again next week. Blessings. And remember to laugh hard, to never fear, and always be kind, not only to yourself, but most importantly, to each other.